Abort start procedure. PCL off for starter auto reset. Emergency engine shutdown on the ground. PCL off, firewall shutoff handle pull, emergency ground egress as required. Emergency ground egress. ISS solo, seat pin in both. Parking brake as required, canopy open. If canopy cannot be opened or situation requires right side egress, CFIS pin remove both. CFIS rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise and pull both. Uppers lowers legs release both. BAT, GEN and aux BAT off. Evacuate aircraft. Abort. PCL idle brakes as required. Engine failure immediately after takeoff, sufficient runway remaining straight ahead. Airspeed 110 knots, minimum. PCL as required. Emergency landing gear handle pull as required. Flaps as required. Engine failure during flight. Zoom glide, 125 knots, minimum. PCL off, intercept, ELP, air start, attempt if warranted. If conditions do not warrant an air start, firewall shutoff handle pull, execute forced landing or eject. Immediate air start. PCL off, starter, auto reset, PCL idle above 13% and 1, instruments monitor Y, T, T, N, 1, and oil pressure. If air start is unsuccessful, PCL off, firewall shutoff handle pull, execute forced landing or eject. If air start is successful, PCL, as required after N1 reaches idle RPM, approximately 67% N1, P, E, L, execute. Uncommanded power changes, loss of power / uncommanded propeller feather. PCL, mid-range, PMU, off, prop sys circuit breaker pull, if NP stable below 40%. PCL, as required, if power is sufficient for continued flight, P, E, L, execute. If power is insufficient to complete P, E, L, prop sys circuit breaker, reset, as required. PCL, off. Firewall shutoff handle, pull, execute forced landing or eject. Compressor stalls. PCL, slowly retard below stall threshold, defog on. PCL, slowly advance as required. If power is sufficient for continued flight, P, E, L, execute. If power is insufficient to complete P, E, L, PCL, off. Firewall shutoff handle, pull, execute forced landing or eject. Inadvertent departure from controlled flight. PCL, idle, controls neutral, altitude check, recover from unusual attitude. Fire in flight. If fire is confirmed, PCL, off, firewall shutoff handle, pull. If fire is extinguished, forced landing execute. If fire does not extinguish or forced landing is impractical, eject, both. If fire is not confirmed, P, E, L, execute. Smoke and fume elimination electrical fire. OBOGs, check, both, on max, emergency. Chip light. PCL, minimum necessary to intercept ELP, avoid unnecessary PCL movements. P, E, L, execute. Oil system malfunction or low oil pressure. If only amber oil pressure caution illuminates, terminate maneuver. Check oil pressure. If oil pressure is normal, continue operations. If red oil pressure warning illuminates and/or amber oil pressure caution remains illuminated for 5 seconds. PCL, minimum necessary to intercept ELP, avoid unnecessary PCL movements. P, E, L, execute. Low fuel pressure. P, E, L, execute, boost pump on. High fuel flow. P, E, L, execute. OBOGs failure / overtemp / physiological symptoms. Green ring pull, both. Descent below 10,000 feet. Initiate obogs off both. Eject. Ejection handle pull both. Post-ejection procedures. Inspect canopy, inflate LPU, release raft by pulling SSK, manual release handle. Options, 5 items as required. 1. Lemoyne slots, pull toggles to turn into the wind. 2. Visor as required. 3. Oxygen mask as required. 4. Gloves as required. 5. Seat survival kit as required. Coke connectors located. Prepare to land. Forced landing. Airspeed, 125 knots prior to extending gear. Emergency landing gear handle pull, as required. Airspeed, 120 knots minimum until final. 110 knots minimum on final. Flaps, as required. Precautionary emergency landing. Turn to nearest suitable field, climb or accelerate to intercept ELP, gear, flaps, speed breakup.